talking to the Odd Couple. Hold on one sec. He's the co-founder of the Odd Couple Pod. He's also Fox Sports. First things first. Friend of the program, Chris Broussard. What's going on, Chris? How you doing, man? Thanks for joining us.
I'm great, man. How are you doing? How you guys?
We're doing well. Here's how I'm going to start. Chris, you think the Warriors are really going to repeat?
I mean, they were my pick in the preseason because obviously the West was just so wide open. Even then, we could kind of see it. I felt like Memphis was immature. I felt like the Lakers, who knew what they would be, and with Westbrook, they obviously weren't a great team, and so on and so forth. But I got to be honest, if they do end up repeating, it will still be a surprise, even though I picked them. And it would be an incredible achievement if they repeat this year. But, look, their experience, I mean, we saw it in Game 7 against Sacramento. I think they're actually going to be better now going forward because of that series. If they get past the Lakers, I think the Lakers are better than a lot of people think. I think this is a fairly evenly matched series, and it's going to be whose style wins out. The Lakers are big, and the Warriors aren't, obviously. So will their small ball be able to overwhelm the Lakers, or will the Lakers' size be too much of a problem? But if they get past the Lakers, then who can't they beat? If Boston's not looking good, Philly doesn't scare you, and God, if Miami somehow gets out of the East, you can't be afraid of them. So, yeah, they got a great chance, man, to repeat. That would be crazy.
Yeah, I'm with you, Chris. I got the Warriors in 7, but it's a nervous Warriors in 7 simply because of the size. And I got to ask you, the Lakers beat the Warriors 3 or 4 this season. Does that mean a damn thing? Or, you know what, they're longer since the trading deadline, the Lakers, and they got more athletes than they had before?
Well, I mean, I'd have to look. I knew the Lakers had success against the Warriors in the regular season. I don't know, with Steph playing all those games, or where was Wiggins? So that's why, especially nowadays when guys sit out so many games, it's hard to get too much from that. But to your point, I mean, the Lakers size, going back the past few years since Anthony Davis got there, I've always felt like if they get the Warriors in the playoffs, that'll be a tough matchup. But what I think is, look, the Lakers clearly, Memphis is a team that goes into the paint a lot. And they aren't one of the better, they're one of the worst three-point shooting teams actually in the league. So when they got stopped at the basket and Anthony Davis shut down the lane, Memphis really had no recourse because they don't shoot it that well. Obviously, the Warriors, that's what they want. And look, Wiggins, Clay in many of the games, Poole, they didn't really shoot it well against the Kings. And so I think they're due, and I think they will shoot better, because I think even though the Kings are a great defensive team, their perimeter defense I thought was pretty good in that series. It was much better than I expected. And I don't think the Lakers' perimeter defense is going to be as good. Because remember, the Lakers are a new team together. They haven't played a lot together. So with the Warriors' offense, which is different from almost every other team in the league, they are going to have their communication, talking, and really be on a string. And I think they're going to get confused at times, and you're going to see some bad matchups where a defender that shouldn't be on Steph is on Steph or on Clay, and I think the Warriors will be able to exploit that.
Chris Broussard joining us on 95.7 The Game. He's a First Things First on Fox Sports. Let me ask you about Kevon Looney. He had a great series against the Kings and Sabonis. Now he's going up against Davis, LeBron, and Vanderbilt. What do you anticipate his challenges are going to be?
Well, man, he looked like Dennis Rodman. I mean, he was their second most valuable player, because you saw in games 1 and 2 how, Sacramento won those 2 because they dominated the offensive glass. And he just, did it by himself in those last 2 games, but he was tremendous. Look, he's obviously not going to dominate and control the glass like he did against Sacramento, because Anthony Davis is a great rebounder and has been great in the playoffs on that end. But I do think he and Draymond can do enough to keep Davis from like dominating the entire series. And Anthony doesn't, offensively he's up and down as it is. So I don't expect him to be great like 6 games offensively. He'll be great defensively, but offensively and defensively you want to get him out there, maybe get him guarding in space, and that's where you can exploit him. And offensively, I think they're going to want to try to get him to shoot jumpers. All right, get him away from the basket and try to make him a perimeter player. And if I'm Looney, I'm trying to get physical with AD and kind of beat him up, obviously without getting yourself in foul trouble. But that's what AD doesn't like. He doesn't like the physical play. We know he's always said, I don't want to be a center. Even in today's game where there aren't many great centers, where you're not down there banging for 40 minutes like the old days, he still doesn't want to be a center because of the banging. The Clippers, they have great success against the Lakers because they got Zubac and Plumlee and big guys that'll kind of get physical with AD. So that should be something Looney does, get physical with him, and I think that could take a little bit of AD's will.
Chris, bear with me here because I'm bad at analogies, but today, because I follow you, I'm going to try to paint the picture of parenting and being a sports fan. And as a parent, you always got to think about your kids and think down the road in the future, okay? And I just, for whatever reason, Chris, cannot stop thinking about Steph Curry, and I know it's game 1 tonight. What if he gets number 5? I got him in my top 5. I know you got him in your top 10. But if somehow he were to pull this off, Chris, would he surpass LeBron James? Because I told Steiny earlier, I'm ready for the conversation of this isn't the LeBron era. Steph Curry stepped and gotten away. It's the Curry era.
It's interesting you bring it up because we had that discussion. I just got off First Things First, and we had that discussion, and obviously it drove Nick Wright crazy. I personally would not have him ahead of LeBron James. I got LeBron number 2, obviously Jordan number 1. But I presented the scenario that you just said. I said, look, there will be people, because I'm already hearing it, texts and people on TV and people you talk to, that will say, well, Steph's won more than LeBron in this era. And, yeah, he had KD for 2 years. But if he wins 3 without, not just without a KD, he and Kobe are the only 2 superstars that have won, multiple championships without a top 75 teammate. And then he will have 3. He'll be the only one without a top 7. I got to check on Duncan. I don't know if Ginobili or Parker might have made the top 75, but Kobe won the 2, obviously, with Pau Gasol. But you say top 5. I felt like I made a big step, and I believed in it, but putting him in the top 10. But what you're starting to hear is that he might be better than Magic. And if he gets number 5, they'll both have 5 rings. Magic obviously had a stacked team with, Worthy and Kareem and Jamal Wilkes and so many other great players. If you put him ahead of Magic, then he's going to be top 5 because most people have Magic in their top 5. I got Magic number 4. I don't know. They're such different players. You couldn't get 2 styles that are more different than Magic and Curry at the same position. But it will be. I would be ready to have the Magic Curry discussion, and I guess coming out of that is a top 5 discussion. So I don't know that you're too far off.
Chris Broussard joining us on 95.7 The Game. Let me ask you this, because you said, if they beat the Lakers, the Warriors, who's in their way? There was a team you didn't mention, or I missed it if you did, the Denver Nuggets. Chris, it just doesn't seem like anybody's going to give them their respect until they either get to the finals or win it all.
No, I agree. They're kind of like, they're different, but I think the conclusion about both teams is the same. Philadelphia in the East, because we've seen them stumble and fall so many times, and Denver in the West. Like, we're not going to believe in them until they do it, until they show us. Here's my issue with Denver and Golden State, because it looks like Denver's going to get past Phoenix, especially if Chris Paul is out. Denver's not a great defensive team. Now, granted, Sacramento was an even worse defensive team in the regular season, but their perimeter players, I thought, got after it defensively and really played well. We know Mike Brown is a really good defensive coach, so they picked it up in the postseason, at least on the perimeter as far as defense. I don't think that Denver can do that. I don't think that, MPG, Michael Porter Jr., and, Jamal Murray maybe, but I know Bruce Brown's a good defender. But I don't think they're going to have problems with the Warriors offensively, or the Warriors offense going to give them problems. Look, right now against Phoenix, especially without Chris Paul, is basically KD, give it to KD and let him go one-on-one, give it to Devin and let him go one-on-one. That is going to be so much different from what Denver faces if they meet the Warriors. The movement, the constant ball movement, player movement, going off the screens, the misdirection, I think it's going to confuse Denver, at least for a few games, and that, I think, again, would be a big help for the Warriors. And we saw it a bit last year. I think Draymond can bother, to some degree. Jokic is a great player, but I think Draymond can, guard him about as well as you can guard Jokic. So, look, I'm not going to totally write off the Nuggets, but I do think if the Warriors get past the Lakers, I think they would beat the Nuggets as well. And if Phoenix somehow beats Denver, then I would feel the same way than beating Phoenix.
Man, good stuff, Chris. I got to ask you this. It's about another series that went down last night, and that was Boston. Chris, I tell my partner all the time about pro teams. Do they match? Do guys complement each other? And I got to slow down here, but I think Boston is almost, they're perfect almost in regard to having a little bit of everything. But you go to last year's finals, they were up 2-1, had a lead in game 4 on their home floor. Okay, I'll leave that there. The Warriors, tip of the cap. But I watched Atlanta win games that Boston won a couple times but didn't close. Is it Missoula? Is it Marcus Smart in regard to not being smart at the crunch time? I need answers, but I'm worried about Boston. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, look, they have lacked focus, and you mentioned it even going back to last season, but they seem to be, when they get a cushion, they relax. And last night, I know it was game 1, but knowing Embiid is out, it was a cushion, right? It was oh, we got this. That's a human nature type thing that anybody would feel, but the greats are able to override that and still play your best game. Boston hasn't shown the ability to do that consistently. I do still think they get past Philadelphia. And again, some of that's because I've seen Harden come up small in the big moments. I've seen Doc, since, he left Boston, struggle in the big moments and lose these playoff series. So they got to show it to me before I really believe in them. But I do hear you about Boston. I don't think Boston could beat the Warriors. I think the Warriors, just like we saw last year, I just think they befuddle the Celtics. And Missoula, as good as he did at times during the regular season, they don't have the same defensive identity that they had under Udoka. And that is becoming a problem. And they, under Udoka and especially Brad Stevens, their late game execution was great. And you saw last night their late game execution was atrocious. So Missoula, right now he's looking like he's a bit overwhelmed. I think he's done a good job in the regular season, but he better step it up for these playoffs.
That's real.
All right, Chris,
Take
you're the
it
man.
easy.
Really appreciate it, as always, and talk to you soon.
All right, guys, anytime.
Yes, sir. Chris Broussard, First Things First, Fox Sports.